Welcome to Hyperfixation Investigations, the podcast where two neurospicy best friends take time 2 Saturdays a month to info dump their research deep dive of the week.
Lovingly produced and copyrighted by Wolf and Stag Productions.
Today's fun fact is, plutonium is named after the planet Pluto. Well, what used to be a planet, but we'll argue about that at another time.
Planet. Yeah.
Following the two previous elements found and named uranium and neptunium.
Good morning, I'm Josh, and if I remember how to speak like a real human being, I will be captaining today's episode, The Demon Core.
Good evening, I'm Kara, and I definitely don't remember how to speak like a real human, so it's a good thing I'm not in charge. For those of you joining us for the first time, how things work here is Josh will be leading us through a mini lecture on the topic, and we will discuss it in detail with any questions we might have throughout.
Expect tangents throughout. We switch off duties every episode, so next time expect Kara to take the helm.
Now to our regularly scheduled program. Josh, what have you been hyperfixating on this week?
Okay, so I think first I've got to actually walk you through how I landed on today's topic.
Okay.
So, because I had started researching something completely different altogether.
Good.
So I was trying to figure out where to pivot, and then I was thinking about...
Pivot!
And then I was thinking about screwdrivers. Because, okay, so I was recently explaining to a friend the fan theory connection between Doctor Who and Rugrats.
Ah, yes.
Which I assume you know.
I do.
Yeah,
I do,
okay.
in fact.
But for anyone who doesn't know, real quick, there was a Nickelodeon cartoon when we were little called Rugrats.
I only ever really watched cartoons at my sister's house.
Fair.
Doctor Who I watched as a child, but the
Right.
Rugrats, I think I watched in junior high
Oh my God.
because I wanted to understand what people were talking about.
Yeah, that's fair. But yes, it was a cartoon on Nickelodeon called Rugrats. It was about a group of babies that got into a bunch of adventures and silly antics. Doctor Who, of course, very long-running, well-known British science fiction show. There was an old fan theory surrounding Rugrats that it was at least partly based on Doctor Who. And I don't actually know how much of this is true.
Okay.
But, there's at least similarities, right?
Mhm.
Because they go on all sorts of wacky adventures and have weird antics popping up all the time. And Tommy, the main character of Rugrats, loves to solve problems with his screwdriver.
Yes,
And the Doctor is always running around solving problems with his sonic screwdriver.
indeed.
Which at least feels like an homage. And there is at least one episode where Daleks, one of the primary antagonists of the Doctor, shows up on toy shelves in the background of Rugrats.
Nice.
Yes. So there's at least a Doctor Who fan on the old Rugrats production team, if nothing else.
Yes.
But I was talking about that.
Okay.
And that reminded me of the Demon Core, because screwdrivers remind me of the Demon Core.
Of course.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they?
I'll explain why later.
Okay, great.
Yes. No, while I'm talking about that, though, just so everyone is aware, there's going to be some morbid topics today.
Mm-hmm.
I will briefly mention the nuclear devastation enacted upon Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because we are talking about the cores of nuclear bombs. But
Not yet. We're not just talking about the aesthetic demon core. We're talking about the actual physical.
It's sad.
I read too many romance novels.
In preparation for this episode, I didn't even think about the aesthetic of Demon Core.
Well,
But as soon as you said it,
yep.
I heard it. No, not the aesthetic. But more specifically, what we'll be getting into later is a couple of deaths by radiation poisoning.
Fun.
Yes. But first, I'm going to take us through a little bit about the first couple of atomic bombs ever built, and specifically what the Demon Core is and how it came to be. Before then, we get into the 2 major incidents that resulted in the fatalities that earned the Demon Core its name.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Towards the end, we will also talk a little bit about the, shall we say, unexpected influence the Demon Core has had on pop culture.
Great. I cannot wait to see how you merge these two things.
It's strange.
Well, we've already talked about Doctor Who and Rugrats, so I think we're just kind of on par for today.
We'll get there, don't worry.
Great.
Anywho, first things first, I suppose. I feel like I've probably yapped about the Demon Core to you before.
To me, yes.
Yes. Okay.
I also grew up with a World War II buff.
No, that's fair.
And I watch lots of documentaries. Anyway.
So the Demon Core is a nickname given to the plutonium core that was created by the United States during World War II with the intention of making it into the third atomic bomb that would be dropped by America onto Japan.
Because, 2 weren't enough.
Right.
Mhm.
And it seems like the core itself was finished and ready, but the rest of the bomb hadn't quite finished construction before the end of the war. And we're talking days here, not weeks, days.
Okay.
And Japan was able to communicate their surrender quickly enough that the third bomb was never dropped, thankfully. Which, quick history, sidebar tangent.
Here we go.
Japan began asking the Soviet Union about acting as a mediator in peace talks as early as at least late June, early July of 1945. And the war officially ends August 15th. So at least a month beforehand, they were communicating with the Soviets going, hey, would you mind acting as an intermediary with the rest of the Allied forces to talk about surrender? And there was an initial attempt at drawing up peace proposals by the Allied forces called the Potsdam Declaration in mid-July that was rejected by Japan on July 25th, I believe. It seems like that was mostly because they wanted more conditions added to it because Japan wanted to be able to keep more of their conquests from the war.
Yeah.
As well as maintain a decent amount of their
armed forces
and maintain their government, right? They didn't want to be forced into switching to a more Western style government. Something else to keep in mind here is that Stalin had promised to join the war against Japan by August 15th.
Okay.
So in order to preempt the potential invasion of Japan and avoid sharing in the surrender negotiations, President Truman gave the go-ahead to drop the first nuclear weapon, Little Boy, as early as August 3rd, weather permitting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it does seem as though at least part of the decision to drop the bomb when we did was to ensure that Japan surrendered faster to prevent the Soviets from having say in the
surrender
negotiations, or at least as much say.
Good.
Yes.
Because, the Cold War definitely didn't start until the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. What?
No, and it was totally necessary. No, I want to be very clear. I am on record as a pacifist, and I am very against the use of any weapons on civilian populations, let alone some of the most destructive and horrific weapons we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I don't believe there is any justifiable cause to use them.
No. Maybe to blow up an asteroid, but...
But, okay. If you're talking about the classic Bruce Willis movie Armageddon, that... Okay, the problem with Armageddon, right, is that actually, putting a nuke inside of a giant asteroid, it would just turn one giant rock into basically shotgun pellets at the Earth. It wouldn't be any better. It certainly wouldn't split in half like somebody just popped an apple in half. It's oh, it went around. Anywho, don't get me wrong. I love that movie. It's a classic. It's silly as hell.
Yep.
But I have so many issues with it. Anywho, before the initial nuclear bomb dropping, they had 4 potential targets: Hiroshima, Kokura, Niigata, or Nagasaki, in that order of preference, depending on weather.
Okay.
So, on August 6th, 1945, the Enola Gay dropped the uranium bomb, Little Boy, onto Hiroshima, killing between 60 and 80,000 people almost instantly, and resulting in the deaths of an estimated 135,000 by the end of that year.
Yikes.
Yeah. Due to radiation sickness and other injuries sustained from the blast.
Yep.
And 3 days later, while Japan was still reeling from the first blast, on August 9th, the plutonium weapon, Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki, resulting in the deaths of upwards of 70,000 or more Japanese people. And reminder again, these were civilian targets, not military targets. So Japan offered up their surrender the next day on August 10th. The U.S. responded on the 12th, accepting the surrender. However, there were still talks within each government that delayed the official end of negotiations.
Of course.
Yeah. And so an agreed upon like end to hostilities wasn't officially accepted as like a public surrender until the 15th.
Okay.
Meanwhile, until the 15th, the third bomb, nicknamed at that time the third shot, was still being constructed and was supposed to be ready by the 17th. So 2 more days of deliberation and negotiations, and it still might have seen use.
Yikes.
Yeah. At this time, the core at the heart of the third shot was nicknamed Rufus.
Okay.
Because, of course, you know, it's early enough in our nuclear program that each core could have a nickname.
Right.
Where now it's just too many. And there's been too many for way too long.
For way too long, yes.
It does end up getting its nickname changed to the Demon Core as a result of the deaths that we'll get to in the second half, but we should probably really briefly cover some basics of nuclear fission, which I think we talked about maybe a little bit during the Star Life Cycles episode.
Yeah, I think we did.
I know we talked about nuclear fusion because that was more the focus there. And we don't need to get too deep into it today either necessarily,
Okay.
But just to go over some of the basics again, remember that all mass, all the stuff around us, ourselves included, is entirely made up of atoms, and the properties of those atoms depend on how many protons, neutrons, and electrons are making those up. Where the number of protons is like the most defining piece for big picture differences. Like the main difference between gold atoms and mercury atoms is 1 proton.
Love it.
Yep. If an atom has 79 protons, it's gold. If it's 80 protons, that's mercury. And it is toxic.
Very toxic.
Now, you can have different quantities of neutrons in an atom without changing what element that atom is,
Okay.
but it will change some of the properties and may be less stable.
Right. Those are, what are they called? They're called something.
You're thinking of isotopes?
Yeah.
Yes. Fission is the process then of splitting atoms, which occurs when a neutron slams into a large atom and imparts enough energy that the atom breaks apart into at least 2 smaller pieces and usually several loose neutrons. So then those loose neutrons then can slam into other atoms.
Right.
And that process releases a ton of energy.
Yeah.
The release of those additional neutrons means that you can create a chain reaction.
Lovely.
Yeah, as long as there's other like fissionable material nearby. It's not going to create a chain reaction with literally everything.
Sure.
It's just the stuff that is unstable enough. So that's the basis for all fission-based nuclear weapons. It's just chain reactions of neutrons slamming into particles that then release neutrons when they break apart, which then so on and so on keep going.
Yeah. Like
And-
a domino effect.
Yeah, and the idea is that that happens almost instantly,
Right.
like extremely quickly. If it happens very slowly, I mean, you don't want to be around it, but it's not.
It doesn't have the same devastating effects.
No.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for reference, uranium-235 is the fissile material used in the first dropped atomic bomb, which was nicknamed Little Boy.
Mhm.
And yes, when I say U-235, 235 refers to the total number of protons and neutrons together in
Okay.
the atom. It's the atomic mass of the nucleus or center.
Right, because electrons don't really weigh anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have basically no mass. Like they have some, but it's negligible when you're actually like weighing out
Sure.
an atom. When U-235 undergoes fission, it breaks apart into barium and krypton.
Okay.
Yes, krypton.
Great. Okay.
Yes,
My brain just stuttered to a stop and went, wait.
yes. Nope. We did name an element after kryptonite.
Great.
We
Okay.
just named it Krypton.
Isn't that the planet?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Why did we name it Krypton instead of kryptonite when that feels like it'd be a better, more direct homage?
Because DC had a copyright?
You know what? Wouldn't surprise me. But I don't know for sure. U-235 also spits out an average of between 2 to 3 neutrons. I think the average actually comes out to almost exactly 2.5 neutrons.
Huh.
So this makes U-235, understandably, a good choice.
Yeah.
When you want to create a chain reaction where tons of atoms undergo fission very quickly. In fact, U-235 was also the material used in the first ever man-made self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction test in Chicago in 1942.
Yes, people don't realize that the Manhattan Project started here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least a big chunk of it.
At U of C, underneath all of the really cool Gothic libraries and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first successful attempt at a nuclear reactor, which became known as Chicago Pile 1.
Good.
Great name.
Chicagoans definitely named it. You can tell.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the thing. They called it Chicago Pile 1 because it's literally just like a pile of graphite bricks, 20 feet wide and 25 feet tall, with holes in them so you could insert uranium rods and control rods made out of wood, coated with cadmium, I believe, because cadmium slows neutrons down.
Okay.
So you can like control the number of reactions per second. And it was built specifically underneath the University of Chicago's football field.
Yep.
In secret by a team which included Enrico Fermi.
We gotta love Fermi.
Yeah, renowned Italian-American physicist. As well as the metallurgical laboratory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the success of U-235 in that reactor test is, as far as my research could find, at least part of the reason that it was initially greenlit for use in the first nuclear bomb. However, with the timeline that Los Alamos nuclear research team was facing, they couldn't get enough U-235 in time for more than one bomb. So, because U-235 is pretty rare, and U-238 is like much more common in nature, but they can't really use U-238 because it's nowhere near as unstable.
Okay, something in my brain says that things that have atomic masses that are even are more stable than atomic masses that are uneven. Is that true, or is that just my brain making shit up?
You know, off the top of my head, I don't remember. I feel like that's not actually a rule, but I don't
either. That just like popped into my brain and
I don't want to say for sure because I don't remember. But I don't remember that ever being like discussed as a rule. Yeah, but again, nuclear...
I don't think I learned it in like chemistry class. I think that was another documentary that focused on nuclear isotopes.
Hey everybody, this is Josh from the editing room, just coming in with a clarification. Kara is correct here, actually. More specifically, most fissile materials do have an odd atomic mass number because they have an imbalance of neutrons and protons. They then end up with an odd number for their mass number, which tends toward instability more so than stability. This is not necessarily a hard and fast rule, but it is a good rule of thumb. So, props to Kara for remembering that, and let's get back to the show. Because U-238 is nowhere near as unstable as U-235, they had to pivot to something else. Plutonium-239.
Okay.
Made by adding a neutron to U-238.
Okay.
And I know what I said about protons determining the element and not neutrons. That's still true. It's just that adding a neutron to U-238 creates U-239, right? Because that's now the new mass.
Right.
You've added a neutron. But that then radioactively decays into Neptunium-239.
Okay.
Which then itself decays into Plutonium-239.
And does it do so very quickly?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why it kind of lands on plutonium for a longer amount of time. So that's why that's what it's called.
Yes.
Okay.
So uranium-239 has a half-life of 23 and a half minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's nothing.
So over 23 and a half minutes, half of the uranium-239 will decay into Neptunium-239. So you don't have to wait very long. And then Neptunium-239 has a half-life of approximately 2.36 days.
Okay.
So it takes longer for Neptunium to turn into plutonium, but that's still pretty quick.
Right.
And the way that these things decay is actually through beta decay, which, don't worry if this is a lot. I'm moving kind of quickly through a pretty big idea here, but beta decay is actually when there's so much energy in an unstable nucleus that a neutron spontaneously becomes a proton and an electron and a neutrino. Don't worry about the neutrino. He's doing his own thing. But the proton then means, okay, well, it's now a different element.
Right.
Both uranium-239 and neptunium-239 undergo the same decay, where a neutron spontaneously turns itself into a proton
so
and
then
ejects.
that changes the atomic number.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so the mass is the same, but the element changes.
Cool.
There was a facility in Hanford, Washington that was working around the clock for a couple years to produce the plutonium that would be used in the Trinity test Fat Man, and the Demon Core.
Okay.
Yes. So the Trinity test was also plutonium.
This was not a spur-of-the-moment project.
No.
We had long had ambitions for nuclear weapons.
Oh, yeah.
Or atomic weapons. But yes.
Yeah. And actually, while researching this episode, I found out some more about why the second bomb was named Fat Man.
Oh.
Do you have any guesses?
Of why it's called Fat Man?
Yeah.
I feel like I used to know the answer, but I don't.
That's fair.
I'm sure they explained it in one of the many documentaries I've watched, and yet I don't.
So the original names for the first two bombs were going to be Little Boy and Thin Man.
Okay.
And I believe Thin Man was supposed to be a reference to, like a sci-fi book from like the 20s.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm kicking myself. I didn't write down which book, and I can't find it on a quick search, but I'll see if I can go back in and find that later.
Okay.
Hey everybody, Josh from the editing room back again. It looks like supposedly the Thin Man was named after not a sci-fi novel, but rather a detective novel written by Dashiell Hammett about the Thin Man. All right, let's get back to it. They started calling the second bomb Fat Man instead of Thin Man because they had to dramatically change the shape of the second warhead when they realized that they couldn't use the same triggering mechanism for plutonium that they could for uranium.
Interesting.
Yes. So because they had one that they were definitely doing uranium, and then the others were plutonium, they needed a fundamentally different design.
Mm-hmm.
And the uranium bomb was actually so simple to set up that they never needed to test it practically. They knew mathematically this will succeed.
Oh,
this will blow. And also, we don't really have enough to spare to test it.
So then what was tested at Trinity?
That was the plutonium.
Okay.
Yeah. Little Boy, which was the uranium,
mm-hmm.
was known as a gun-type fission weapon because it launches one like subcritical mass into another subcritical mass, like shooting a bullet into a pile of bullets.
Okay.
And when I say these are subcritical, I literally just mean that they can't go critical or supercritical without some serious outside intervention.
Mm.
But slamming them together, they're able to go supercritical or prompt critical, which all
means
that,
it explodes.
Yes. Prompt critical, it explodes. If you ever are watching a sci-fi show or like a history show and somebody says something is going critical, that doesn't necessarily mean it's actually going to explode. It just means that the fission reactions are sustained.
Right.
And ongoing. Supercritical means that the rate of fission reactions are increasing. And then prompt critical is, this is going now.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So going critical, supercritical, okay, that's concerning. Prompt critical is
you don't have
that's a
time
bomb.
to worry about it.
Yeah. And just because something goes prompt critical doesn't always mean that it will explode. It depends on how large a mass it is.
Mm.
But that's getting into the weeds. Don't worry about it. So slamming one subcritical mass into another in a gun-type assembly works and is considered simple because it's just putting two pieces of the same material into contact, and they then become one supercritical mass, which then ideally undergoes prompt criticality.
Right.
So the problem presented by plutonium-239 is that a gun-type assembly became immediately impractical because the methods being used to create plutonium-239 almost always result in some impurities, specifically some plutonium-240.
Okay.
Plutonium-240 has a nasty habit of spewing out neutrons like it's trying to make it rain at the club. So as soon as you have even close to a critical mass of plutonium-239, it doesn't matter that it's still subcritical. You're going to be getting fission reactions left, right, and center, so you end up with a lot of wasted fuel.
Okay.
It's just not practical. So they had to pivot to inventing a much more complicated implosion type nuclear weapon, which is conceptually still kind of simple. It comes down to using a sphere of plutonium as a core surrounded by shaped explosive charges, which when detonated, put enough pressure on the plutonium core to compress it into itself and induce prompt criticality.
Okay.
Basically tricking a smaller amount of plutonium into behaving like a supercritical mass.
Sure. Because, when things get denser like that, they get more volatile usually, which you see a lot in astrophysics, things like neutron stars and
Yeah, you're
black
literally
holes and
oh,
all
yeah.
that.
You're literally just pushing all the material closer together
Yeah.
and forcing it to interact with each other more and more. All of this tinkering to make the design work resulted in a much wider and rounder plutonium bomb. Hence, the name was changed from Thin Man to Fat Man. And because they were less sure about how that would work, they had to test it with the Trinity test.
Sure.
Most of Oppenheimer was about like the lead up to the Trinity test.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next problem that Los Alamos encountered was that plutonium isn't easy to reshape, and it's not easy to keep its shape. It's an extremely temperamental metal, multiple changes in its physical properties depending upon the temperature of the room it's in.
Oh, cool. Like kind of like mercury.
Yeah, the properties shift
Yeah.
a lot, and it can become very brittle very easily and very easily deformed. Eventually, they figured out they could make a plutonium aluminum alloy, except that plutonium aluminum alloys also have a problem with the quote-unquote pre-initiation problem.
They start exploding before you want them to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a little premature.
It's a problem a lot of people have.
Hey, it happens to a lot of people eventually. They eventually figured out they could use plutonium gallium alloys instead. The problem is those are prone to rusting, so they had to coat it in nickel.
Oh my God.
Right. So eventually we had a plutonium gallium alloy sphere with a nickel plating that was approximately 3.5 inches in diameter, or 8.9 centimeters, and weighed 6.2 kilograms, or 14 pounds.
Jeez.
So a 14-pound ball, a little bit bigger than a baseball.
Yeah, that's heavy for something that size.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is the core that would eventually be known as the Demon Core,
Very nice.
but starts as Rufus.
God, it shouldn't be funny, but
No, I know. That's...
let's name an atomic bomb Rufus.
Why not? Because you gotta have a sense of humor about some of the worst things imaginable.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
These spheres were carried around in admittedly very weird and kind of cool looking magnesium cases to protect the people carrying them from radiation. I'll put these on the website, but let me see if I can pull this up just to show you real quick.
Oh, those are interesting. They look like milk crates almost.
Yeah, they look like somebody sci-fi'd a bunch of milk crates.
Yeah.
And was like, yeah, we just put some greebles on it, and what do you know? Now this is a
Now we can carry bombs in it.
right. So naturally, when the war ended, the core of the third shot stuck around in Los Alamos
Of course.
for use in criticality testing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they kept the radioactive core of what was supposed to destroy a city in a lab in Los Alamos to test to see how close they could get to criticality and with what methods.
Great.
So I will say I've seen multiple sources claiming that these tests were referred to as tickling the tail of the dragon,
Good.
specifically by Richard Feynman,
Okay.
the notable theoretical physicist who worked on the Manhattan Project, but ultimately became even more famous for a lot of his own work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tickling the tail of the dragon, that phrase should probably send up some red flags,
You would think.
you would think.
You would think.
Yeah, and I know it's easy for us to sit here in our basement studio in 2025 and say, hey, what were they thinking?
Mm-hmm. Except, 1945 is the year my father was born, so it's really not all that removed.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I would think it should be a potent warning about safety precautions.
Did OSHA exist yet?
I think... No.
No.
OSHA was passed in 1970.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah. Anywho, now might be a reasonable time for a brief break
Okie doke.
before we get into the small-scale tragedies.
The small-scale tragedies of the
Yes.
Demon Core. Okay.
All right. Okie dokie, class. Let's put a bookmark in the history books for a minute while we grab another cup of tea and give you all the mid-roll spiel.
Welcome to all of our listeners to Season 2. We had a lovely summer sabbatical filled with fun times and rest, and we're thrilled to be back in the swing of things. Coming into this next season, we would love to hear from you all, so please leave a comment or review anywhere you listen. We want to know what topics and possible features or perks you all might be interested in, and the engagement helps us a lot. If you would like to contribute to us directly and help us continue growing, consider subscribing to our podcast on Patreon.
Reminder also that you can find transcripts of our episodes on our website, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And for those of you who appreciate social media updates and episode reminders, please follow us on YouTube at Hyperfixation Investigations Podcast or Blue Sky at HI-podcast, or sign up for our email list at our website to ensure you never miss a thing. All right, shall we jump back in?
We shall.
So now we're actually going to get into the incidents that earned the Demon Core its name.
Coolio.
Yeah, so before the break, I said that the core was left at Los Alamos for testing to see what methods could be used to create conditions for criticality.
Right.
The main way this testing was done was by attempting to simply reflect escaping neutrons back towards the core,
Okay.
because a pretty easy way to induce criticality.
Mm-hmm.
This is referred to as building a neutron reflector.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We don't get a fun Star Trek name for it.
Neutron reflector is already like...
True, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Look, we're not getting dilithium crystals here, all right?
But I want
But dilithium crystals are it's too lithium. It's too lithium. What? Anywho. So the war officially ends on August 15th, 1945, right?
Got it, yes.
By at least August 21st of that same year, the plutonium sphere, which at least at that point was still nicknamed Rufus, was being used in these near criticality tests, and August 21st is the date of our first incident.
Wow, so not long at all after when it should have been dropped.
6 days.
Yep.
6 days after the war ended, 4 days after it was initially supposed to be ready for dropping.
Right.
Yeah. 24-year-old physicist and researcher Harry Daghlian Jr.,
Okay.
full name Harrowtoon Cricor Daghlian Jr.
That is a Star Trek name if I've ever heard one.
Yes. He was raised in Illinois, attended MIT, and graduated from Purdue, and was one of the men who helped transport the plutonium core that was used in the Trinity test.
Okay.
On August 21st, he was placing tungsten carbide bricks around Rufus and was using a Geiger counter to measure how much radiation was being released as an indicator of how close the core was to criticality.
Okay.
Tungsten carbide works really well because it's extremely dense.
Like as a reflector?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's extremely dense and highly reflective. So there's a low chance of neutrons penetrating the bricks.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them will just bounce right back. However,
Oh, God.
when I say these bricks are dense, each brick is about 4.4 kilograms or 9.7 pounds.
Okay.
And Harry Daghlian Jr. had gone in late at night to continue his work alone. So he's the only scientist in the lab, placing these nearly 10-pound bricks around the assembly by hand.
Yeah, of course.
And he was in the middle of placing one more brick when the Geiger counter indicated that the assembly would go supercritical if he placed that brick. So he cautiously starts to lift the brick away from the assembly.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, he dropped the brick. It slipped.
And what did he drop it onto?
The assembly. He dropped
Okay.
it in place.
Right.
So the tungsten carbide brick fell into place on the assembly and caused the plutonium core to briefly go supercritical.
Good.
Yep. Now, he was quick to react, and with his right hand swept the brick off the assembly. But in the report of the accident, he stated that he felt a tingling sensation in his right hand as he did this, and simultaneously noticed that there was a blue glow surrounding the core.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. He went on to remove more bricks to ensure the reaction fully halted, but it was later estimated that he received 510 rem of radiation poisoning. For reference, 100 rem in a short period of time is considered highly likely to cause acute radiation syndrome, also known as radiation poisoning,
Right.
or radiation sickness. And Harry received a dose more than 5 times that amount, almost
Yikes.
instantly. In fact, most sources of radiation that are encountered in day-to-day life, such as like chest x-rays,
Mm-hmm.
are measured in millirem.
So tiny amounts.
Yes.
Yes.
1 millirem is 1,000th of a rem.
Right.
And a chest x-ray is, 2 millirem, I think?
So like nothing.
Yeah, basically nothing.
Yeah.
You'd need to
And
receive...
you still wear the protective gear when
yeah.
you're going for x-rays. Like,
Yeah.
I used to get a lot of them done when I was getting my orthodontics work,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But my orthodontist had one of those ones where you had to stand and wear the heavy
mm-hmm.
smock thing. And yeah, my dentist now has the normal, like, really easy ones.
Oh, sure.
For just getting your mouth and whatever. But this was like, because with orthodontics, sometimes they need to see part of what's going on with your neck and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So this was the bigger one. But anyway, I digress.
I think that it might have been the type of one that my orthodontist had too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember now if that was for that or if that was for the heart surgery.
Yes, the infamous heart surgery.
Yeah. I don't remember well enough. Anywho. Yeah, so you need like 50,000 chest x-rays at once to maybe get acute radiation syndrome. So, sidebar, when it comes to radiation, there is ionizing radiation, which is the harmful stuff.
Okay.
And non-ionizing, which is not.
Just like lives in the air and is fine.
Yeah, well, like light. Visible light is non-ionizing radiation.
Okay.
Right. So we typically think of like 3 types of ionizing radiation, though there's technically at least 4. It depends on how exactly you qualify it.
Got it.
And we're not going to get into the ones that like, there are even more technically, but we're not going to get into it.
We don't need to know.
Nah, it's too much. But the big 3 are alpha, beta, and gamma radiation, right?
I think most people have probably heard of them. I would hope you have.
Yeah. At least in some TV show or something or other.
Yeah.
Story,
if not chemistry class.
Yeah. Where alpha radiation is basically just a fast-moving helium nucleus. It's 2 neutrons and 2 protons as one particle flying around.
Mm-hmm.
It's most dangerous if ingested or if you're making like direct physical contact with an object that's leaking alpha particles. The good news is these things are heavy enough that they're pretty slow and they can be stopped with a piece of paper.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you really only need a little bit of protection from alpha particles. They're easy to block.
Mm-hmm.
They typically only travel like a few centimeters in air before the air is dense enough to
stop it
or
slow
just
it down enough.
Yeah. Beta radiation particles are fast-moving electrons or positrons that are small and low mass enough that they can travel a few meters in air. So you would need a thicker piece of plastic or a thin sheet of metal to block their path.
Okay.
This stuff is dangerous, but still relatively easily mitigated as long as you have the proper protective layers.
Got it.
Gamma radiation is where things really get nasty. And again, alpha and beta radiation are very dangerous.
Right. They're just easier
to defend
mitigate.
Against.
Yeah.
Gamma radiation, I mean, they're technically not particles, though they also are particles because they're actually, it's just super high energy light waves.
Okay.
So they're like well above the visible spectrum. They are both waves and particles, therefore, because light is waves and particles at the same time. It's a whole thing. But they're just high enough intensity, and because they're light, they don't have mass.
Okay.
So you need a very thick wall of like some dense material like concrete, or maybe a thick piece of lead to stop gamma rays. So here's the thing. Harry Daghlian Jr. was exposed primarily to the secret 4th type of radiation that I teased but have not yet mentioned.
Great, which is?
Neutron radiation.
That sounds terrifying.
It's exactly what it sounds like, too. It's just neutrons freed from their nuclei by fission reactions, flying around for up to thousands of meters in air.
Yay!
Though they can be stopped with a few feet of concrete or water,
mm-hmm.
Neutron radiation is the only radiation that can make other particles radioactive. Because, when a neutron strikes another particle, it can split that particle and continue a fission reaction, or, more likely, it simply gets absorbed into the atom that it strikes.
Good. And then turns the atom
unstable.
Right.
Yeah. Not that everything is always unstable the minute another neutron interacts with it. It's just, it's dangerous partly for that reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a mere 6 days after the war ends, the plutonium core that was made to kill tens of thousands, instead relegated to research, manages to mark its first kill.
How long after that incident did he die?
25 days.
I bet they were painful days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did slip into a coma before he officially died, but he donated his body to science for the study of radiation poisoning, and his right hand was particularly badly burned and blistered, as it was the hand he used to sweep away the initial brick.
Right.
And now I should also note that I said earlier that Harry Daghlian Jr. was the only scientist in the lab that night.
Uh-huh.
He was not the only person
Oh, good.
in the lab that night. An Army guard named Private Robert J. Hemmerly was reading the newspaper at a desk approximately 10 to 12 feet away from the core assembly.
But still in the same room?
Still in the same room.
Great.
Hemmerly was 29 at the time, and he was estimated to have only received around 50 rem of radiation.
Interesting.
So half of the...
You're definitely getting radiation poisoning amount. Yeah.
But still, not great.
Right.
And Hemmerly did die of cancer 33 years later at the age of 62. And yes, that leukemia was eventually determined to be most likely caused by a large dose of radiation earlier in his life.
Mm-hmm. There's actually, just a sidebar, my mom has been doing some interesting research into the crossover between workers' comp and occupational disease
Ooh.
in law.
Yeah.
And things like, what is the statute of limitations for occupational disease versus workers' comp responsibilities for things like mesothelioma and cancers that are caused by exposures at work that take decades to come to fruition and stuff like that. So it's an interesting little niche in the law world.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that because it takes so long, I'm sure it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it reported that Harry Daghlian Jr.'s colleague, Louis Slotin, spent many hours at his hospital bedside during those final weeks.
Okay.
Louis Slotin actually was one of the co-authors on the report of the incident. And not only that, but there was actually an advisory committee formed specifically to improve safety procedures around similar experiments going forward.
Good.
Yeah.
You would think maybe that should have happened before people died.
It's not like they didn't know radiation was dangerous.
Right. You know, after they bombed a couple cities and killed about, 200,000 people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and not even just that though, but just like the radiation itself, because this was after Marie Curie. This was after
Radium Girls. All of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we knew radiation itself was dangerous enough. It seems like maybe we just shouldn't be flaunting safety precautions here.
Or tickling the tail of the dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did start improving safety practices, and they required at least 2 people present for any future experimentation. And they had to be using at least 2 instruments to measure neutron activity, and those devices have to have alarms that can be heard and are not purely visual. This is when discussion began about potentially doing such experiments completely remotely in the future. Mm-hmm. So literally using a remote and like devices from a safe distance in a separate room. The remote testing, though, is only in discussion at this point.
Of course, because it was still the 40s.
Yes.
Yeah.
So ironically, and that friend that I mentioned, Louis Slotin, is the next victim of these criticality experiments, exactly 9 months later on May 21st of 1946.
Good.
The team was now conducting slightly different criticality testing, still neutron reflectors, but instead of tungsten carbide bricks, this time the research team was using 2 beryllium-coated half spheres. So the idea here is you place the core inside of one half sphere, and then like lower the second hemisphere over the top of it.
Okay.
And you use like shims and wedges to gradually lower it and change the amount of space between them. So once again, using Geiger counters to monitor the radiation level and detect how close the core was to criticality. And if the 2 half spheres ever met and snapped shut, the core would go supercritical again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Slotin developed something of a reputation for flaunting safety procedures.
Yeah, because,
Yeah.
it didn't kill his best friend or anything.
No, I don't know if they were best friends, but they were friends.
Still, friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, bit of a cowboy at the lab. Instead of using the shims and spacers to ensure the half spheres would never fully close, he would hold the top half sphere with one bare hand, and in the other hand, a trusty screwdriver. So this is why,
where the screwdrivers come in. Okay, I'm getting it now.
This is where the screwdrivers come in.
I would just like to say this is what my father calls Darwinian theory in work.
Yeah.
In action.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be brilliant and still
do something horrendously stupid.
Yes.
He did it this way because he could get closer to criticality without the spacers and shims in the way, right?
Sure.
And he did this successfully many times.
Right. It only takes once to kill you.
Yes, because past performance is not an indicator of
future
success.
Correct, yes.
And I should note also that Louis Slotin was involved in the assembly of the Trinity Core. So, his confidence in working with another such core isn't completely out of left field.
Sure.
But it is still brazen.
Right.
Enrico Fermi at some point witnessed Slotin performing one of these experiments, and to quote the American Physical Society's archival database, quote, "A dismayed Enrico Fermi told Slotin he would be dead within the year if he continued to flout the safety protocols." End quote.
Yeah, that sounds like something Fermi would say.
Yes, and unfortunately he was correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently Slotin had lost his passion for pursuing nuclear tests in this capacity, really, and nuclear weaponry in particular.
Okay.
So he was in his last few weeks at the lab before hoping to head back to the University of Chicago to continue pursuing biophysics and radiobiology.
Okay.
He was taking his replacement, Alvin Graves, on a tour, and they passed by the criticality test room. According to the BBC, Graves commented that, he'd never actually seen the testing in action yet, and Slotin offered to demonstrate. No one knows exactly what was different about this demonstration, what happened, but at about 3:20 p.m. on May 21st, 1946, the screwdriver slipped. Half sphere slammed shut for only a moment before Slotin flipped the top reflector off of the assembly to stop the chain reaction.
Yeah.
The other 7 men in the room all reported a flash of blue light, and Slotin immediately disassembled the reflector, but he is reported to have immediately followed the incident with the quiet words, "Well, that does it." He also shouted at all the other scientists to stand still, not to leave the room, but stand still and mark down exactly where they were, tossing them a piece of chalk to mark down your location.
Yeah, if we're all going to die, we may as well make sure that we give them as much information as they need to investigate it.
Yeah, let's measure how many years we just took off your life.
Yeah.
Frustratingly, none of the men present were wearing the dosimetry badges they were supposed to be wearing.
Good.
So they don't actually have equipment readouts to confirm what dosages each person received, but dosages for most of them were calculated based on Geiger counters in the room,
right,
their location.
Mm-hmm.
So Louis Slotin died 9 days later,
wow,
at the age of 35, on May 30th, 1946, having received greater than 1,000 rads of radiation and succumbing to organ failure.
Yeah.
I will say that of the 8 men in the room that day, only Louis Slotin definitely died as a direct result of the radiation dose received.
Mm-hmm.
The second highest dosage received was an estimated 166 rads inflicted upon Alvin Graves, the man who was scheduled to replace Slotin.
Right.
He did die of a heart attack some 19 years later while on a skiing trip.
Still young, though.
Still young, and there's no reason to think that the heart attack wasn't partly a result of this.
Right, because you don't know what system. I mean, it fucks with all of your systems. So.
Well, he was hospitalized for a few weeks afterwards because he lost a lot of hair and most of his white blood cells and was fatigued for approximately 38 months.
Jeez.
And developed terrible cataracts, particularly in his left eye.
Yeah, well, the blue flash is really good for your vision.
Yeah. But this is also part of why I'm frustrated whenever TV shows use a green flash for nuclear stuff.
I've
or
never
a green
even
glow.
noticed. Yeah.
The green glow is evocative, but it blue is
more,
unfortunately,
correct.
More historically accurate.
Right. I just feel like this is a story. I mean, of course, I am sorry that people died. Obviously.
No, it is a tragedy.
But it's such a story of hubris as well. And these kind of weapons and this kind of research had been going on long enough for people to know better.
Yeah. No, these deaths were avoidable.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, the only person in that room who died of cancer was physicist Marion Edward Cieslicki, who passed away 19 years later in 1965. As a note, as far as I'm aware, the only movie which directly shows either this event or the first incident is actually the 1989 film Fat Man and Little Boy, wherein they actually just made Harry Daghlian Jr. and Louis Slotin into a singular character named Michael Merriman.
Okay.
Portrayed by John Cusack, of all people.
Oh, right.
And so that movie basically melded together both of the incidents. So they showed him using screwdrivers to manipulate a beryllium hemisphere, but they had it in an assembly surrounded by tungsten carbide bricks. And they portrayed
Interesting homage.
Yeah, they portrayed it much more like a routine analysis gone wrong.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah, I think they had somebody dropped a coffee mug and the distraction and dramatizing something like this. I get it.
Right.
But like there's a lot of details that change that just frustrate me because, of course it does.
Right. Hollywood is Hollywood. That will always just be something. But also, they weren't accidents. They were fuck-ups.
I mean, they're still...
They were still accidents.
Yeah.
But they were also fuck-ups.
Yeah.
They weren't accidents that had no way of being stopped or
more
avoided.
Precautions should have been taken.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I find it odd how rarely these people show up in like stories and fiction about the Manhattan Project. Because like even in Oppenheimer, there is no one cast. I double checked the cast list just to make sure I didn't like forget. There is nobody cast as Harry or Lewis.
Their families may not have wanted to sell their rights,
which I would completely understand if that's the reasoning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know
Who knows?
that.
And it's one of those things too where you're far more likely to find them in documentaries than you're ever going to find them in the Hollywood blockbuster stories. I don't know. I feel like, especially with World War II, but in general, there are a lot of very evocative and very interesting small-time stories that don't get told. What I would be interested to find out is whether or not there's been plays written. Because Radium Girls and the other one, one of the local theaters just did the other one, and I can't remember the name of it now. Because there are two separate groups of women that went through similar circumstances with the painting of the watch faces and stuff. So Radium Girls was one group in the West Coast, and then the other one was actually, I think, either here or Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
So they have plays written about them, and you don't really hear about them.
Yeah.
Outside of if you know those plays. I think one of them was maybe Radium Girls was a movie in the...
I think so.
But like people in our generation are not necessarily going to have seen or heard of any of that, you know?
Yeah. I just have issues, I think, with things based on historical events. When I know there are details wrong or like, they've combined these people into one character or they've, said like, this person is the one who said or did this thing when it's like, but you had the other guy in the room. He's the one who said that famously. Why would... Right. Okay. And I know that like Oppenheimer was not specifically about them in any way. It was like, it was focusing on Oppenheimer, weirdly enough, and like his journey with the nuclear program. Yeah. But it's still, I don't know. I still always feel weird when I'm like, why are they not there at all? Because it's not like, they gave their lives and like other contributions to the program. Right. I don't know. Hollywood gonna Hollywood. Yep. But the outcome of all this is finally actually implementing stricter safety procedures and limiting any such testing to instead be done remotely by mechanical devices rather than people with no personal protective equipment. At this time following the second incident, the Demon Corps nickname was actually applied. I mean, I feel like bomb techs wear more protection than... But also, they're not expecting this thing to explode. That's true. They're just going, well, as long as nothing goes wrong, we're fine. Yeah. Ugh. It's temptingly poetic to attribute the Demon Corps nickname to this object, given its original intention was to be a weapon of mass destruction. Right. And it's still going around killing people. Yeah. 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 I just think it's always important to point out that, the deaths could and should have been avoided. And I'm grateful that such safety precautions were more rigorously implemented as a result. Yeah, for sure. And like nuclear programs, and especially nuclear like energy today, is extremely rigorous with safety protocols because just absolutely not. There's I think it's like Samsung TV or something like that. I don't have cable. I have a television at the end of my bed because I watch documentaries to go to sleep at night, which is part of how I've watched so many of them. And when I'm not watching something on a streaming service, I have it on like the Nature channel, which is all BBC stuff. Sure. But it still has commercials, even though it's not like regular cable or whatever. And every show has like its own 3 commercials that play every commercial break. Yeah. So last night, coincidentally, or who knows, maybe the universe knew, there were commercials for trying to convince people that nuclear energy is clean energy and it's safer than, working in a grocery store and all this different kind of stuff. And I'm aware that it's clean energy. It's a great transitionary kind of energy. I was actually just having discussions with some people about how we don't talk about when we restrict a country's access to nuclear material, we also
restrict their ability to use nuclear power. It's not just nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
But that be it what it may. So it's just interesting,
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, working in a nuclear power plant is safer than working in a grocery store.
Yeah. Well, it's because
Yep.
the safety protocols are exceedingly rigorous because they have to be. And part of it is they have to be because there's been so much bad press.
Right.
I mean, Fukushima and Chernobyl.
I was like, Ukraine?
Ukraine? Yeah. Yeah, Fukushima and Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Ugh. However, there is a chart that actually I have saved that I'm going to put up on the site, or I may as well, I guess, if we're having this discussion. There's a chart it's a couple of years old now, from I think 2021, that gathers data from a variety of sources of the last couple decades to show the death rate from accidents and air pollution per energy source.
Yeah.
And the greenhouse gas emissions of each energy source. Specifically with the death rate, it's in deaths per terawatt hour of electricity produced.
Okay.
And this is from ourworldanddata.org. Coal, 24.6 deaths per terawatt hour. Oil, 18.4 deaths per terawatt hour. Natural gas, 2.8. Biomass, 4.6. Hydropower, 1.3. Wind, 0.04. Nuclear, 0.03, including Chernobyl and Fukushima. Solar, 0.02.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's incredibly safe.
Yeah.
Especially compared to fossil fuels and the horrendous greenhouse gases that they give off.
Yes.
Because
well, and a lot of people don't realize
pollution,
that it's steam coming out of the top of nuclear power plants.
Yeah, because here's the funny thing. So many of our power plant designs are basically just, how can we recreate the steam engine in the most complicated way possible?
Yeah.
And nuclear is no different. It's literally just, we'll use these spicy rocks to heat some water. And that's it.
That's it.
That is literally it.
That's it.
And in fact, I think coal and oil is often basically the same thing. It's just, okay, we'll use it to heat some water to turn some... It's just that coal and oil and natural gas and biomass and all that. Yeah, you're burning things that give off toxic fumes.
Things. Yeah, because you're not actively burning something with nuclear power.
Right. It's literally just, okay, there's some fission reactions happening here. The only things being released are neutrons and some element byproduct. Some other elements are being produced. But it's easy to contain that.
Right.
Anywho.
Do we know who named it the Demon Core?
No.
No, just became a colloquial.
Yeah, it just became
name.
The nickname for it. Do you have any guesses as to what happened to the Demon Core after these incidents?
They continued to use it.
That's not a bad guess.
I mean, what do you do with a plutonium core?
Yeah. I don't know. Why not? Yeah, no, that's fair. So for years, there were reports claiming that the Demon Core went out in one last explosive display.
Okay.
As part of Operation Crossroads, which was a series of nuclear test detonations conducted at Bikini Atoll in the summer of 1946. So it would have meant it blew up and was in the ocean a mere 5 weeks after Slotin's death.
Yeah.
However, there is documentation to suggest that the Demon Core was only scheduled to be part of Operation Crossroads, and it was actually made to wait because they had to make sure that any ongoing nuclear fissile reactions were slowed down enough that it was safe to travel.
Okay.
There's also a New Yorker article from 2016 titled The Blue Flash, whose author, Alex Willerstein, claims that he was able to get into contact with retired Los Alamos scientist and Manhattan Project consultant Glenn McDuff.
Okay.
And that McDuff claims that the Demon Core was in fact held in reserve for a test in the series of Operation Crossroads that was canceled. And as a result, the Demon Core was simply melted down, and its materials were then used in the creation of other nuclear cores instead.
Great.
Which is somehow...
That's like spreading the curse.
More insidious?
Yeah, because you're spreading the curse. If you're going to call something a Demon Core, we all know that there's superstition now attached to it.
Yeah, there's at least some bad juju there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's once again poetic in a horrifying way.
Yep.
Now, despite the Demon Core not officially being a major milestone or turning point in the eyes of like the news media, or kind of being not quite lost to time, but being kind of forgotten about as like, yeah, it's a thing that happened.
Yeah.
It's had some weird resurgence in pop culture in the last, I don't know, decade or two, particularly in the form of memes.
Of course.
Yep.
Because what else revives something from the dead like that?
Yeah. No.
Vine.
Memes. Yeah. Random internet jokes and pictures. Here's the thing. A weird number of Demon Core memes online, not all of them by any means,
Right.
but a weird number, involve anime girls.
Of course they do.
Yes.
Of course they do.
It's like, if you don't mind dark humor, because again, people died from this,
Right.
I encourage you to go Google Demon Core memes, because it's a weird mix. It's a weird combination of humor. And the jokes are strange. Like, I've seen at least one that was a wizard pondering a crystal orb, except instead of a crystal orb, it was the Demon Core, and he was holding a screwdriver, and he had the blue glow. So, you know, some of them get strange, some of them it's just, yeah, nope, it's literally just replacing Louis Lawton with an anime girl, and it's just, she's just using a screwdriver on the Demon Core, and that's the joke. That's the whole thing. Why? I don't know. I don't know. But I have seen other weird things, like people trying to make the Demon Core into a D&D magic item. Specifically...
Okay,
like,
that's not a horrible idea.
No. Specifically as like a flail.
Good.
Where like it's like a hinged, like two halves of a core that on the end of a flail that you whip around, and that it like closes. And,
sure.
Like, yeah, blue flash to irradiate your enemies.
See,
which
my
is
immediate
insane.
thought was one of those womp womp things from
Womp things.
from Mario.
Oh, the chomp chomps.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I love how I jokingly made fun of you for calling it a womp, but the name is the chomp chomp.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But like things like that, where it just pops up in weird ways like that. And there's been specifically kind of a resurgence in the last decade or so of anime girl Demon Core memes.
Love it.
Yeah. Now, there is also, if the Demon Core did actually go out in Operation Crossroads, which I'm fairly certain it didn't, but if it did there, exploding in Bikini Atoll means that
SpongeBob.
Yes, because Bikini Bottom, the town in SpongeBob, is commonly thought to be a reference to Bikini Atoll.
Yes.
Because...
how else do all of these creatures have sentience and all of that fun stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, all the walking, talking fish in this show are secretly a dark joke about nuclear radiation affecting the fish population. Yep. Which the horrors inflicted upon Bikini Atoll's wildlife and native human population?
Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
Nope.
But also too extensive to really like get into here.
I can't remember if it was at the Bikini Atoll or if it's at a different oceanic island site where they were doing nuclear testing. But in this History of Abandoned Places, or where is it, or whatever this documentary is called that I often watch when I go to sleep at night, one of the areas that it's all satellite photos of weird things that they then go on to explain what they actually are. And one of these things is one of the nuclear storage lockers, one of the nuclear waste lockers on one of these like tiny island sandbars. This giant concrete, slightly domed circle with the perfect circle sitting carved out of the sandbar directly next to it. And how, it might be leaking, but we don't know for sure. So
it's probably fine. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Anywho, that's basically all I've got today, unless you had any other thing to add or questions or whatnot.
I don't think so.
I just enjoy learning about the Demon Core and thinking about it on occasion because it is such an odd, hey man, this these could have been avoided, and it's just a horrifying case study in safety procedures. Safety protocols are not to be flaunted, and proper protective equipment is necessary.
Well,
Yeah. Also, if you want to see a picture of Harry Daghlian Jr.'s hands,
no, thank you.
I have one. Okay. I didn't think so, and I'm not going to include it in
the site.
the
Yeah,
website.
because we don't have any way to censor or like
No.
say don't show image unless somebody clicks on it kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
yes.
But those images do exist if you want to go find them.
Yeah. Well, that's another Doctor Who reference too, really.
What?
The hand.
The hand.
The hand.
The
You know,
hand.
David Tennant's hand.
Oh my. Oh, okay, that's a stretch, and you know it.
We'll bring it
But they
full
didn't-
circle back around to Doctor Who.
But that hand was cut off. That's okay. Good night, everybody.
It regenerates. I mean, come on.
Yes. Oh my God. All right, fair enough.
We can make every episode somehow about Doctor Who. I'm nearly positive. That's a wrap on episode 18, The Demon Core. If you'd like to delve further into this topic, our research sources and related images are posted on our website, hyperfixation-investigations.com. Again, that's www.hyperfixation-investigations.com. Thanks so much for listening.
Follow us and drop a like, comment, or topic idea on Blue Sky and YouTube for updates, and check out our Patreon to support us directly. Join our Discord community and receive other special perks.
See you in 2 weeks, and remember, what's a little info dumping between friends?